Hey everybody, welcome back to Planet Coaster. In this video I'll work on just one building, which is kind of underwhelming for a video of 15 minutes, which does equal 3 hours of gameplay. Have that cleared up again, because I still do get some comments about it. But yeah, it took 3 hours to record this and I still got only one building done, which is a little bit different than usual. Usually I don't really like to record tweaking with buildings, and I like to have some sort of plan when I get into a building that doesn't really require much of tweaking and can do it as quickly as possible. But with this building, I wanted to keep a lot of time and space left to tweak it and make sure that it was exactly the way I want to, because it's a really important building, and it's somewhat large as well and has some areas of scenery around it too. It's basically going to be a restaurant, a pretty large restaurant at that. And as such, it's going to be the weenie of this area, basically. The park so far doesn't really have too many weenies, but this plaza doesn't really have anything that really catches your attention so far, and this building is really going to make or break the look of the plaza itself, and because of that, it's a pretty important building, and I wanted to make sure that I got it right exactly the way I want to. So yeah, here goes to trying that. The restaurant itself is actually not that... it's not that unique or anything. It's a pretty standard kind of restaurant, not really going out of the box or anything like that. It's just one part of the building with a gable roof, and another part which is slightly larger and is tilted 90 degrees on the end to kind of give it a front and make it sort of look as if it's really pointing toward the plaza itself. But that's basically everything to the building itself. It's not going to have any towers or any shapes that go into all sorts of directions. It is going to be a somewhat simple building in terms of shape, but I do want to get in quite a bit of detailing and trying some new things. And one of the first things that I really needed to try something new of, and also probably fix throughout the park, is the cornerstones. I actually got quite a few messages from different people about the cornerstones, which in the rest of the park not all the cornerstones are right, in that the long side and the short side of the cornerstones aren't always placed correctly on the buildings, which is something that I do want to fix in the future. But at least I managed to get them in right on this building, so that's quite an achievement. And also I wanted to try some new cornerstones, some more light ones. Many of the buildings that I have so far in the park are very heavy on the wood, and this building I wanted to make it a little bit more fancy with more stone details, things like that, and you see it coming back in the windows as well. There are more light tones in general on this building than on the rest of the park's buildings, because they have more wood in them and just more darker colors in general. And this comes back in the windows as well, which have much more white accents than a lot of the wooden elements that the rest of the windows in the park have. And what I also wanted to do with these windows is add in quite a lot of different pieces to make the details for it. Not because I want to make very detailed windows, I do want to keep them quite simple, but to just give them a look that the other windows don't really have, especially with like a very limited array of items as we have in the game at the moment. It's really easy to sort of run into the issue where everything looks more or less the same, because no matter how like many different shapes and structures you make, if they're made out of the same basic elements, you kind of start recognizing those, and seeing the same windows in all the exact buildings, seeing the exact same windows in all of the buildings is kind of a thing that puts you out of whatever immersion you're really in. And I want these windows to look quite simple and quite a bit different from all of the windows that you see in the game itself, and also from the windows that I had in the park so far. So that's why I wanted to stack all of those different details, but at the same time still keep it quite square and simple. The top of the building though is quite similar to many of the buildings that I have so far. Wanted to get some stucco in there just to have it relate a bit more to the theme, because I didn't want the building to stick out too much. And the same goes for this more back part of the building, which doesn't come out as much as the front does, and it's also quite a bit lower, so it's definitely not going to be the most attention drawing part of the building. But it does give it a pretty nice shape and a nice connection, and also a very good way to actually add an entrance to the building and make sure that it could realistically actually be a restaurant. One thing to note is that this also won't actually be a functional restaurant. I try to keep as many things functional as I can, but in this case I really can't hide any kind of chief beef inside of this building, because I would have to get a store inside of it and have a path actually go toward it, which is practically not really possible with the setup that I'm making here, which you'll see in a bit. So it's not going to be a functional restaurant or just pretty much make-believe. Now I just wanted to quickly make this simple porch here to make it a bit more interesting to look at and also make the building look a bit more like it's an actual restaurant. And underneath that porch, which is sort of hanging over the patio which I built, I wanted to get this same wooden wall which I used for the station of the coaster earlier on, just because I didn't have enough leg in the game yet, and I definitely needed hundreds of windows to make one simple wooden wall, or a stone wall I should say, but I do really like this wall. It might be like a very minor touch, but I wanted to avoid using the brick walls because, well, the floor is already made out of that brick texture, and all of the other textures are already quite common, and this does give it like a different color for the foundation than for the rest of the building, which does look a little bit nicer, I think, and a pretty good way to get started on the scenery around the building itself, because the building at this point is pretty much finished, and the rest of this video is going to be mostly about how to actually incorporate the building into the area around it. Now what I wanted to do is actually get some pretty good connections for the patio with the paths around this area, because obviously it is quite a sizable restaurant, but I can't actually directly connect it to the path in front of it because it's a pretty large height difference. So I wanted to get some stairs in on both sides of the restaurant. And first I thought I might actually add some wooden stairs, but those just ended up looking very poor and very ghetto-ish. So that didn't really work out in the end, and figured it would be nicer to actually have some stone stairs which fit in with the look of the terrace itself, and have some nicer looking fences on the sides of that as well. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. It took quite a while to actually get these pieces together, but I like with every single fence that I try to build and every single border alongside paths, I like to try and mess with some slightly different looks to it, some slightly different textures and pieces and overall shape, just to make sure that, you know, not everything starts looking the same. I think one of the easiest mistakes that isn't even saving a lot of time or making things a lot easier is to just use the same fences all around the park, to just copy one fence all over the park, or copy the same kind of lanterns all over the park, that kind of path elements, which are really easy and quick to make, but can really make or break how a certain area looks. Just for that, I wanted to get some slightly different fences in for all of these different parts of this area, just to get some variation into the fences as well. Otherwise everything just becomes surrounded by the same looking fences, which is a bit boring to look at. Now one other thing that I wanted to do here is something that I've been wanting to try for quite a while, and looking back I'm still not sure if this was the best decision to build over here, but I've been wanting to make trellises for quite a long time. Just didn't really find the right place for it, and I've been planning to build a trellis on this spot here. Although, looking back, it is quite a tight spot as you can see, and it's quite a bit smaller than it looked when I drew it out on paper. So, not really sure how well this worked out in the end, but I did have a dead corner, or over here more or less. And not really a big fan of leaving some kind of corner of a theme park completely empty and leaving it as a place where you can't really do anything. So I wanted to build the trellis here and actually be able to have some tables and chairs underneath it in the future, just as an extension of the restaurant itself, and actually incorporate this area into it as well, because it's not enough place to really place another stall in, or another midway game or anything like that, and building a quick trellis to at least get some connection with the restaurant seems like still the best idea on this very tight space here. It's quite an easy thing to build as well, just a few wooden posts and some of the driftwood planks, and in between that, for the trellises themselves, some ladders, and filling it up with a bit of shrubbery on the top, which is quite handy since it is very flat and you can very easily use that shrub to make vines or whatever you really want to make and incorporate it into buildings. So I figured it would be nice to have that on top of it as well. And that basically finishes off the basic trellis. And here I'm just messing with the park border a bit, which is something that I've been wanting to do as well, though I won't feature much of it in time lapses. I do want to get like some slight differences in the park border in. So far it's 100% all the exact same fence, which I just copy and pasted around. But I do want to have some different fences and different openings and things in the park border as well. Even though it's not part of the park, it does kind of contribute to the way that the park looks, especially looking from like an aerial perspective. So want to mess with that a bit in the future as well. Now for what's quite important for this being a restaurant, some tables and chairs. These are pretty much the tables and chairs that I took from Alfheim, except, no, I think that's pretty much it. Just some very slight changes on the chairs mostly, and that's basically it, the exact same design. I will also get some umbrellas or parasols on top of tables in other restaurants, but since this already had the porch and the trellis as well, I won't really be messing with too many parasols over the tables in this case. But even with all that decoration, I thought the building was still looking a little bit boring, so I actually took my big buddy, the #1 help against boring roofs, the dormer in, and made a quick dormer, just one because I didn't want to make too many, and one dormer I thought would pretty much do to make that thing on the side of the roof a little less boring. Actually decided to copy it over to the other side of the building as well, so you'll see that happening sometime soon. But it's quite a simple dormer anyway. Dormers don't really have to be anything too special, just a window with a little bit of decoration around it and a roof. But I was quite picky about how large it would be. Wanted it to be, well, slightly lower than the top of the roof obviously, but also stick out quite a bit and be quite close to the bottom of the roof as well. So ended up going with this height and sticking it a little deeper inside the roof on the other side, which made it look like a completely different dormer actually, to finish off the roof. And one last touch that I wanted to add to not just, well, get rid of this very boring section of the roof, but also give this building a little bit of a more rustic feel to it, is add a large chimney, which is actually sort of burrowing its way into a window on the side there. I might want to actually look into that. But it's quite a simple chimney. I chose to use the brick pieces in the end, because even though they aren't really the most usual pieces or the best looking pieces to build a chimney out of, they are very different from the textures that I used on the building so far, and I wanted to get a sort of dark chimney in. Just became a little bit of a struggle here getting these windows in, but in the end it's not that hard to get them in, as long as you're just placing many. The only issue is that it might contribute to the lag, which I'll get at some point in the future. But yeah, that's the pretty simple chimney, quite large, and I wanted it to stick on the side of the wall so you can really have a fire almost in the middle of the building, and restaurants on the side of the wall as well, which would actually be quite nice, figuring if there were actually interiors in this restaurant. It's something which does add to the general charming atmosphere. Now something that I was messing with for quite a long time here is getting the stairs in the front here, because I wanted to get some stairs here since I had just enough space to connect this patio with the path in front of it. And the only issue that I had for quite a while is figuring out the exact steepness that I had to have to actually connect it, and this is eventually what I ended up with. Just a very, very simple staircase made out of just a couple of pieces. Actually ran a few tries there with all sorts of different pieces and different details and materials, but in the end the most simple option just turned out to fit best, I think, so I went with that. And the rest of the decoration is quite simple, just to tie it into what the rest of the park basically looks like. A bit of rock work to blend in the foundation of the building a bit more with the area around it, and a very small border alongside the path to get rid of that sort of repetitive looking border that the paths have by default. And some shrubbery to basically finish it off and top off all of the rock work. Kind of like a nice cherry on top of a pie basically. And on the back of the restaurant I wanted to have some pretty dense foliage. A lot of trees in here for a couple of reasons. For one, I really wanted to make this house look like it's, you know, a house in the middle of the forest, with the plaza in front of the building kind of being this opening in the forest. But also in the future I'm gonna have to transition into a different area there, so this does help to get a tree line in between different areas. So yeah, that's basically how it works. It also helps to raise the restaurant against the backdrop a little bit, because the restaurant is placed on a hill and quite a bit higher than the path in front of it, which does give it a bit of forced perspective to make it look like a somewhat large restaurant, because it is quite a small building, and the plaza in front of it is actually lowered a bit and lower than the rest of the paths in the park, to make it look that little bit further away and that little bit like it's sitting on a larger rock than it really is. This is just a very quick look at what this thing looks like right now. It's not that much. I was kind of hoping to get more stuff done in this episode, but well, lately I've just been stalling quite a bit. Things have been taking a bit longer than I expected, which isn't necessarily an issue as long as I can still push it before Alpha 3 comes around, and it's been nice to work on it so far anyway, so that doesn't really matter. But I am kind of behind schedule, so that's something to note here. And I've also started work on a new part of the park, which actually took a fair amount of time. It won't be included in any of the time lapses, just a simple station for the monorail, which I'm working on right now, which I'll continue work on in the next episode, and that should be parts of the finalizing of the German area. The German area is quite simple, and it's supposed to be like an area that could be a very small theme park just in its very starting phase in the way that it's laid out, so I do want it to be quite closed and have only 1 or 2 entrances into different parts of the park, and this is more or less the layout of the German area. A bit of work that I still need to do is on the monorail station and adding some buildings on the side here with some kind of connection into what is going to be the Dutch area, and something along the ring that I have over here, which I'm not really sure what I'm actually going to do with it. Same goes for this little area, which may very well become a nice entrance into the Scandinavian kind of area, which I still have to figure out over here. And obviously this ride and all of the scenery around it basically still needs to be finished. So yeah, that's stuff that you'll see me doing in the next episode, which is going to be, well, quite a bit messy, since it is like all over the place and not really any kind of particular thing that I'm working on, as I did in this episode, which pretty much the entire focal point is the restaurant itself. But I just have to get to fixing some of the smaller things around this area. There's also a bit of like off-screen stuff that I want to get into, like actually making the border of the park a bit more neat and tweaking some things here and there. So you'll see me do that as well. Also, the station is still a work in progress, so do want to return to that as well. Anyway, that's it for today. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time.